Hello friends, are we there yet? Almost, eh? A little Canadian coming out every once in a while, eh? Yep, I was born in the old country, born in Canada. Grew up in Michigan mostly, but very proud of my Canadian roots. All right, I probably should, well, no, let's do a little green. I was going to say I should stop there. I'm getting too much craziness all over everywhere. These are oil sticks that I'm using, by the way. Two brands, Shiva and R&H. Yeah, no, R&F. Sorry, wrong letter, R&F. Two different brands of oil stick. Anyway, hello, my name is Dan. Thank you for joining me today. This is Daily Art Adventure with a broken clapper. I did that yesterday or the day before. Daily Art Adventure 825. Doesn't have quite the same satisfying click. I have the broken piece. That's one of my tasks at hand now, is to repair my clapper. Well, hello, Mike Yegi. Hang on, why am I not getting my chats here? Just a second. There we go. All right. Don't know if anybody's watching yet. Oh yeah, boy, a whole bunch of you. Woo! Friday afternoon must be a good time to broadcast. Okay, bear with me a moment. Let me roll up my sleeve. By the way, when I'm up here upstairs in my upstairs studio, as opposed to my downstairs studio, it's winter time. It's pretty chilly up here, and I keep this sweater up here that my dear mother, my mom, made this for me about 25 years ago. Isn't that amazing? Cable knit sweater, handmade, every bit of it. Wow. That's my mom. She's always making stuff for children and grandchildren, and now great-grandchildren. All right, I started this painting. Today is Friday. I started this painting on Tuesday evening. Out there in the literally freezing cold, 30, 31 degrees, I think, when I finally packed up at about 9:30. I was hoping to nearly finish, but a number of things, not to mention it was freezing cold. Besides that, there were a number of things that came up that made me think, to heck with it, let's take it home. But as is often the case, I thought I would finish this the very next day, Wednesday, 2 days ago. Now I haven't even touched it. So there you go. 3 cheers for finishing a painting all at once, which is really the way I like to do things. But it doesn't always work out that way. Okay, wait a minute. I'm playing the wrong video. Bear with me for just a minute here. There we go. Hello, Marie. Yes. Yes, from Canada, eh? Yep. And so everything on here, except for the oil sticks that I just poured, of course, everything on the painting is acrylic. So I packed up Tuesday evening. When I finished the oil, I didn't transition. No, sorry. When I finished the acrylics, I didn't transition to oil, but I moved that now. And as always, I begin with a glaze of liquid. Nice, fast drying, a little bit smelly. In fact, even though it's quite chilly outside, I'm going to step over here and open my window. And as long as the kids downstairs aren't making too much noise, I'll open my studio door. Oh, there, somebody's practicing the piano. Oh well. And I have a ceiling fan right over my head. Right, here's what you must say. You and I must say when we get to this point. We say, well, I like it pretty much. That's important for many of you. Those of you who choke on those words the most, it's most imperative for you, though you chokers, it's most important for you to say, well, I like it pretty much. Well, I do like it pretty much, so, but I like it pretty much. I just wish it was more blank, and the blank is a color. And that's, every time you do a glaze, that's essentially what you do. You say, I'd like it to be more, not lighter or darker, because a glaze is always darker, right? It's like laying a sheet of colored glass on top of your painting, colored glass. The painting, by definition, is darker, right? So we're not talking about values here. It's going to get darker. We're talking about color. And I do like this quite a bit, actually. I just wish it was more blue. So real simple. And a couple different colors of blue, ultramarine and phthalo, warm blue and cool blue. I'm trying right now to decide which one of those to start with. I've just decided to start with the warm blue, which is phthalo. We've talked quite a bit about the difference between a warm and a cool blue. I'm not going to give you the math right now. I'll just say phthalo blue is warm, ultramarine is cool blue. Phthalo, in my opinion, phthalo is one of those colors where you absolutely do not want to use a student grade paint. Okay? Because you're not, I don't know what they do to student grade phthalo other than just don't put much pigment in it, which is what they do to all paints. But don't get in the habit of using a student grade phthalo paint, or you'll never ever know what color phthalo is. Okay, so there's some colors. I've developed a new problem with my with this easel here. I've got a threaded knob up there that is stripped of its threadedness. So forgive me while I wrestle a little bit. Now, to those of you who perhaps have never seen me paint before, or you haven't seen me paint often, let me explain a little bit just what I did a few minutes ago when I took these oil sticks and made all those marks. Those are oil sticks, and now I'm painting in oil. So of course, as I rub my brush and liquid over them, they smear. So they create, like, let's zoom in here, right here, just for a minute. So I did a bunch of green over here, and as I rub over it, it becomes essentially just a green haze, right? You with me so far? But it doesn't become completely a green haze, because you can still see a faint ghost or faint shadow of those strokes that I made. Same thing right here. Do you see these two red marks right there? So as I brush over them, they mostly disappear. In fact, if I don't like them, I just keep rubbing till they do disappear. That doesn't usually happen. Usually they get like this one right here. And why, pray tell, would I want those ghosted streaks of color appearing for no realistic, no apparent reason? Why do I want those appearing on my painting? And the reason is because, for that very reason, because they are in fact purely abstract bits of color. And of course, again, to those of you who haven't watched me at all or very much, I start out my paintings and essentially that same way. That is by doing a completely abstract painting over the entire canvas before I start the painting altogether. And that's where, for instance, that's where this orange streak right here, can you see that? Kind of reddish orange. That's part of the original abstract painting that's underneath. Let me show you another. They usually show up in the sky a great deal. Okay, so there's blue. That might be the oil stick, but this red right here is, and these two. No, let's see. Now I'm even getting confused myself, which is good. That is to say, I can't tell exactly which marks were part of my original abstract underpainting and which ones are the oil sticks that I just did. Be that as it may, what I do like very much, and again, this is very unconventional, you know, don't say to me, well, I took a painting class and our teacher, or I majored in art, and my painting professor never told us to do that. That would be correct. You have to get old like me before you... This is not true. Yeah, you have to get old like me before you learn these extreme esoteric secrets of the painting world. And that is not true. I'm hoping you're catching my sarcasm. We seem to be doing okay as far as static goes, right? Let me turn this up real high and check. Yeah, not bad. Okay. So a minute ago I said I liked it pretty much. I just wish it was more blue. Now it is more blue, right? I'm not done though. I'm not done bluing. I'm gonna make it bluer. And I want to come back and... Whew! That lid is on tight. I always say don't use your teeth, and I often use my teeth. But the rest of the story is, if I find it's tight, I don't force my teeth. And don't you guys use your teeth. And don't you blame me if you break your teeth, because you saw me using mine. I will steadfastly deny all culpability in your broken teeth. All right, ultramarine now. So cool blue. I want to just add more. I mentioned the other night when I was down there painting, until just a few minutes ago, the sky, of course, was largely yellow, red, orange, and it was the other night as well. And I said it looked like a fiery sunset kind of sky, but that has never been the plan. The plan has always been for it to be a blue, I'm trying to think of the late evening sky. So that's where I'm turning it right now. And of course, the pink, orange, yellow is still showing through, which is of course what I want. I'm doing something very unusual right now. I'm actually drawing with my glazing brushes, drawing with my big brushes. When I stepped away from this painting the other night and then came back to it, I recognized an error, a mistake in my drawing, and that is that this building needs to be about an inch wider, maybe even an inch and a quarter. So I'm going ahead and doing starting that change right now. And as I often say, and as beginners will often want to, out of embarrassment mostly, they'll want to obliterate any sign of their mistake, that they feel compelled to hide or cover up their early errors, and that's usually not a good impulse. Okay, so just I'm not going to, not now, not until the final edit layer do I hide anything. Okay. Well, this broken easel is proving to be more of a problem than I expected. Oh, hang on just a second. I might have something back here that can help. I have a clamp. Yeah, hang on. Forgive me. I'm going to clamp this painting to my easel. I have a short bar clamp for those of you who care to know what tool I'm using back here. Oh, that's not going to work because hang on, it's a little tweak here. All right. There's always something, eh? There's always something. Now, I'm going to do a warm glaze, that yellow, orange, brown also. I'm trying to decide whether I want to wipe off some of the blue. Yeah, I think I do, which is, again, a little bit unusual. Normally, I just do one messy glaze right on top of another, so to speak. And I have a little bit of leftover paper towels here that I'm going to use. So I'm not going to get angry at it and try to wipe it all off. I'm just going to wipe it off a little bit. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So now I'm thinking of the areas of the painting that I want to be decidedly warm evening glow. By the way, I have a photograph, a reference photo right here, taped to my bookshelf. One of the photographs that I took with my phone the other night when I was downtown. So that's what I'm looking at. I'll be looking at that frequently throughout the painting process. I would really, honestly, I would prefer to, artistically, I'd prefer to go and set up my canvas on the street downtown. And indeed, I do that quite a bit, in spite of the fact that it's much less efficient. It would take me 25 minutes or 20 minutes of packing up at this end, 30 minutes of driving, and 40 minutes of setting up at the other end. So now I'm an hour and a half of time has gone by just to get set up. So plus it's 30 degrees outside, so I can't imagine. Can you? Why if I wimped out and decided to stay here in the comfort of my own studio? But indeed, I have certainly done such things many times in my career, set up, because I just prefer the energy, the immediacy of being on location so much more than painting from a photograph. But I tell myself, I am a trained professional, to quote the whatever silly commercial stuff. So I ought to be able to finish this painting in my studio. I'm doing Indian yellow so far and a little bit of orange, and it is getting smelly in here. I'm going to open my window again. So I'm going to freeze, even though I'm not outside. I'm still going to freeze. I'm doing Indian yellow, a little bit of Scarlet Lake. Yeah, that's now my painting. The painting is roughly taking on the values and the overall color, the color cast, the palette that I expected to finish A little bit too yellow in here. I will wipe some of that off with a rag. Let's do some permanent rose. One of my favorite colors for glazing. Permanent rose looks good, and I'm going to exaggerate, say it looks good in every painting. Something borrowed, something blue, something old, something new, sort of along those lines. Every painting should have some permanent rose in it. Whoa, not that much. I didn't mean to do that much down there, but that's all right. I'll come back and mess around with that a little bit more. Making my fan go faster. Gonna open my door. Whoops, no wonder my door swung shut. That's a problem. I'm running out of Indian yellow. Bear with me a moment while I go searching. This is Richardson oil. And I'm also out of orange. All right. I have a canvas laying on the floor as a drop cloth, and I often use that canvas to clean my brushes with. All right, yeah, that's a better color. All right, now before I go, then, I'm going to darken some of these corners. So I just put some, again, don't take notes here. This is not, you paint with your eyes. You don't paint by recipe. You know, if you go to Wine and Design or such a thing, do you know what I mean by that? One of those social paint along with the teacher kind of things. I have some friends here in the Triangle area that own one of those, and they invite me, and I've led a Wine and Design kind of thing about half a dozen times. They like being able to advertise that they got Dan Nelson to come and do a Wine and Design for them. Okay, why am I talking about that, guys? Okay, in a class like that, you can follow the teacher's recipe. But when I give out colors, generally speaking, I'm not listing those things so you scramble for your notebook and write things down. No. That impulse will lead you to bad painting. No. You paint by eyeball. I'm just telling you out of curiosity, just for curiosity's sake, what it is that I've picked up, but not so that you can follow my magical formula, which is not magic at all. All right, I think I'm done with that glaze, and now I'm going to pick up a cotton rag that gives me a little more control than the paper towel does, because it rolls up and because of its textures, more predictable than a paper towel. In my opinion, and it's only that, those of you who think you can do all your painting with paper towels are just woefully mistaken. You need rags. That's just my opinion. You're more than welcome to chuck it and not believe me, but it is what I think. All right. So layer number 1 or layer 1 and 2, if you count the wiping off as a separate and distinct stage or phase, then I've done two phases. Well, wait, no, 3. I did the oil sticks, then the glaze, then the wipe off. So now at this point, fork in the road, I have several decisions. Oh, you guys are chatting up a storm and I'm ignoring you completely. Oh, Moraid, you haven't heard. Oh boy. Okay. I hope. Here it is. Real simple. I have a color wheel in front of me. Warm and cool. There's one primary colors. 1 warm, 2 cool. I said that exactly backwards. Delete that. Primary colors. 1 cool, blue. 2 warm, red and yellow. Between red and yellow is orange. Orange is warmer than either red or yellow itself. So when you hold your color wheel this way, this is warm and this is cool. The next question is, are red and yellow, all things being equal, which they never are of course, but all things being equal, are red and yellow generally the same degree of warmness? And I would say no. Yellow, generally speaking, has a slight favor over red. In other words, more yellows tend to be more warm than more reds. There's a whole bunch of reds and a whole bunch of yellows, but the yellows tend to be slightly warmer than the reds. You with me so far? So if red and yellow were perfectly matched in their warmth, then orange would be the warmest color on the color wheel. My opinion, however, is that they're not perfectly matched. Yellow is slightly warmer than red, generally speaking, all things being equal, which they're never equal, but again, that means that yellow-orange, in my firm opinion, and this has, by the way, I've had physics majors come online and start talking about the prism. This is not that. So physics majors, button it. We're not doing physics class. In physics, ultraviolet is the coolest color. This is not physics class. All you artists ignore that. Yellow-orange then becomes, if you will, plant this firmly in your mind. This is yellow-orange is true north, is the warmest of warmest colors. Yellow-orange. Not yellow, not red, not orange, yellow-orange. Okay? So once you've got that in your mind, then as you move in this direction around the color wheel, am I moving toward true north or am I moving away? I'm sorry, that was a stupid insulting your intelligence. So this means warmer, this means warmer, this means cool, this direction means cooler, all right? So if yellow-orange is the warmest warm, then blue-violet is the coolest cool. And Moraid, you bring up a question, but a purplish blue has a little bit of red in it, so doesn't it make it warmer? No, not once you get this straight. Because if it was here, if orange was the warmest, then blue would be the coolest, and this would be cooler. But it's not. Yellow-orange is the warmest, so blue is over here. Am I going the right direction? This is cooler, this is warmer. So the more green you have in your blue, the warmer it is. A little bit of red before it starts getting, this is warmer, but this is cooler than this. Did I make that as clear as mud? I'm afraid I did. But phthalo blue is about there, and ultramarine is about there. Okay? Phthalo here, ultramarine here, and am I getting that right? And this is cooler, phthalo is warmer. I think I just confused that completely, but anyway. We'll do it again. Trust me, we'll do it again. All right, fork in the road, and I'm ignoring all your comments, even though they're good ones. Hello, everybody. Peachy Curly, nice to have you on board. You haven't said anything before now, I don't think. Oh, of course I've heard of James Gurney. I talk about him all the time. Enjoy him very much. Favorite books. That's a good idea someday. Favorite books. Hello, Uncle. No, I'll talk about white and black, warm and cool later. It completely depends on which white and which black. All right, here's my, normally at this point, I redraw my image for about the 7th time. And I can draw it either with small brushes with dark transparent dark color, or I can draw it with pencils. However, I'm inclined to do something slightly different for some reason. I'm moving more and more this way in recent months. I'm not sure that's a permanent move, but I'm more inclined to bump the fuzz layer to a slot earlier in the process. So that's actually what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to do fuzz, then draw. All right, you regulars, you know what the fuzz layer is and what that means. Here's my palette upon which I've just laid out a series of titanium white alkyd fast dry titanium. That's very important for me, very important, because titanium white dries very slowly. So this is alkyd titanium, so it doesn't take 3 weeks for my impasto to dry. All right, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of titanium, a little bit of Indian yellow, a little bit of orange, and mix in a lot of white to make a very light yellow or a warm white, whichever those you prefer. The fuzz layer is extremely soft edges. Am I still on screen? Yeah, barely. Extreme. I'm painting fuzz. I'm painting glow. A lot easier to do with 2 hands than it would be with 1. Because with 1 hand, frankly, I don't have the nerve to do what you see me doing right here. I would freeze up, say, oh no, I'm making a mess. So I've just softened. You could call it, especially in this painting, in this particular painting, you could say, oh, he just did a whole bunch of atmospheric perspective. Bingo. That would be a fair analysis. Now, it's not always quite as simple as that, but in this painting, it is that simple. I just did atmospheric perspective. Now, I'm not quite done. I'm going to do a little bit more. Whoops. I have run out of my Scarlet Lake. Forgive me just a minute. I get out some. I want to do some red glow down here because I expect to have some car taillights down there and probably a red stoplight as well. And then I'm looking at my photograph and there's some building over here that has red around the door, around the ground level somewhere. Now back up to the sky. I want my sunset to be a little bit warmer, my evening sky to be a little bit warmer down there. Okay, now, every time I do something like this, I can think of my early painting self, and I think of many of you who are on a very good journey, but where you're at, forgive me for you English majors for the bad grammar, but where you're at right now in your journey is you want to get loose. And just part of me wants to say, so there, I just showed you how to get loose. Just do like me. Just do like that. Then the response is, oh, no, I didn't mean, no, I don't want to get loose that bad, or I don't want to get that loose, one or the other. Right? Now, and I'm just going to leave that go, leave that conversation right there, because I want to say something else. At the end of virtually, until the painting is finished, at the end of every painting layer, painting phase. I paint, maybe you can tell, in distinct and separate stages and phases. Typically, I think a finished painting of mine has nowadays between 15 and 20 stages in it. All right? And I'm at about stage 13 probably right now, something like that. All right. At the end of every stage, until the very, very end of the painting process, the last stage that I did is overexpressed, is too exaggerated, is overly manifest, is having too much impact. I'll say that again in different words. But that's important because that will mess you up. Real simply, at the end, I just did I'm still doing it actually. Now I'm doing smaller fuzz layer. But at the end of the fuzz layer, your painting should have too much fuzz on it. And indeed, my painting does. It's exactly the situation here. My painting has too much fuzz in it. At the end of every single layer, the last layer that you did or that I did should be a little bit too much. All right? You can already see where this is going, right? So why is that not bad? Well, it's not bad because it's the last thing that I just did, and the painting's not done yet. There's going to be several, many more layers after this one that will diminish the impact of the particular layer that I just did. Does that make sense? So, in fact, when I started this fuzz layer, it's funny, it's one of the few evolutionary developments in my painting in the last 10 years when I know the exact date. Oh, it was July 4th. Now I can't remember what year it was, but I think it was July 4th, 2015, I think, or 2016, when I was painting downtown, when I stumbled upon this concept. But anyway, and I didn't know at the time. I started incorporating the idea immediately, but I didn't know for a long time if it was a permanent part of my repertoire toolbox or if it was just a passing fancy. In fact, it has grown considerably. I didn't have anywhere near the nerve that you see me having now to do this kind of thing. This has developed over the last several years, right? I have more and more gutsy to do that crazy. All right, I am declaring myself now finished with the fuzz layer. I'm going to clean these brushes real quick, which is that which Mark Carter does not approve. Darn, I wish I were like Mark Carter. But I'm not, so I clean my brushes. I don't really wish I was like Mark Carter, by the way, just in case you're wondering. All right, so now I've done fuzz earlier. That I will probably come back and do fuzz again later on, but this is the lion's share of it. Whoops. And I just saw, bear with me. I'm just like, oh, this building right here is too far forward, too prominent. All right, now we're good. All right, so now I'm going to draw, and I'm either going to draw with pencils or with brushes. If I draw with brushes, and by that I mean, I'm going to pick up some brushes to show you the size. Yeah, I'm talking about something in this range, so quite small. There's a 2 and a 4 and a 3. 2, 3, and a 4. There we go. Filbert. And if I draw with brushes first, I'll draw with pencils second, almost certainly. If I draw with pencils first, I'll draw with brushes second. So let me stop talking for a moment and see which of those I want to do. Very intuitive. It goes either way. It can change. It changes from painting to painting. One of the factors is if I can still see a lot of pencil. I've done pencil twice in this painting in the acrylic stages. If I can still see a lot of pencil, then I'll probably do brushes first. And I can see a little bit. Yeah, not much. Okay, so for some reason, again, there is no hard and fast rule. For some reason, I feel like going to pencil first. And forgive me, I'm going to sharpen these pencils. For those of you who are new, I will tell you what pencils I'm using in just a minute. Let me first start by saying using pencils in oil paintings is not, I repeat, please, is not a traditional way to oil paint. I can hear some crusty old stuck in his ways oil painting professor saying, "You never use pencils in oil painting. It's a painting, not a drawing." We call those people dinosaurs in any field of human endeavor. I am not a dinosaur. I'm a true creative, by the way. Artists have a reputation for being creative. Most artists are not really very creative at all. They're sheep. They follow the herd, just like all other human beings. Now I'm going to sound very self-aggrandizing. Boy, I didn't mean to get myself into this. But the fact is, I'm a true creative. And I have the resume to prove it. The way that I paint is unique and creative. What I do with my painting, my live event painting, all of my equipment is completely unique and invented by me, and so on and so forth. So anyway, I'm a creative. But and the only reason I bring that up is, well, why is Dan Nelson using pencils in paintings? And the answer is because Dan Nelson is a nonconformist from the word go. From the get-go, or as an old friend of ours, it's from the word get-go. Combining two separate and distinct idioms or expressions, from the word go and from the get-go, and so some people say from the word get-go. Anyway, I think that's cute. Anyway, so the pencils I'm using are made by Jerry's Artorama, so no doubt they're made in China, and they're called Jumbo Jet Black. And they're not as greasy as a grease pencil, but they're slightly more greasy than a Conchi crayon, if that helps you any. So it's a wax-based pencil for sure, a wax-based product, which then technically, of course, means oil-based, wax, oil, blah, as opposed to water, right? At the end of the pencil phase or the pencil stage, then class, what is going to be true of my painting? It's going to have too much what in it? No. Pencil, correct. Very good. Do you understand though why that is not alarming to me, right? Oh no, too much pencil, ah! Right? And that's part of the reason I pointed out. It's like, no, don't be alarmed. You who are maybe trying to copy my technique a little bit. No, don't be alarmed. All is well, relax. It's going to come out all right. And of course, if you do copy me, which is a great compliment to me, but I'm assuming that you would only copy me for a season on the way to becoming your own self, right? And that is the appropriate way to grow as an artist, is be influenced. For many years as an illustrator, Maxfield Parrish was my muse, was my go-to guy. It was like, oh, I want to paint like, ironically, though, I never did. I took the Maxfield Parrish technique and applied it to pen and ink and watercolor and airbrush. But be that as it may, it was his approach and his style was so. But then of course I grew out of it, and that's what. So you're welcome to copy me or be influenced by me, of course, because it's just on your way to being your own man or your own woman. You know that. I don't even need to tell you that, but too late. I already did. I just want to let you know it's okay to copy people, because you're doing it on the way to your old self. Grab a chair here so I can. Looking at my photograph fairly occasionally, and again, for anybody who's new, it's okay to admit that you're scandalized by much of what I do. It's like, what the heck? Not only is he drawing with pencil in an oil painting, but he's drawing really, really, really messy. This is just nuts. That would be an appropriate response. I like to tease people often and say something like, you know what, I am going to have to move these cars. I was afraid of that. They're in the wrong place, so we'll fix them later, which means I put their headlights in the wrong place. And then I often say something like, witness my distress. In other words, I'm not distressed, okay? That's again, the immature impulse, when you've made a quote-unquote mistake in your painting, the immature impulse that you do need to slap down. The immature impulse is to quickly cover up or hide the mistakes that you make, because you're embarrassed, even if nobody walks in your studio, you're embarrassed of your own self, and you don't like to have, if you will, the witness of your mistake staring you back in the face. But resist that temptation, because the mistakes, quote unquote, that you make add to the chaos of the underpainting, and chaos is exactly what we want in our underpainting. Lots of it. Okay, can you guys see? I'm going to zoom in just a part of the painting just for a minute, just so you can see the pencil marks and the pencil texture, and acknowledge that it's crazy. Like, what? Like, look at this line right here. Great big dark line right there. That's crazy. What is that? Is that a tree? Is that what is that? A vapor trail? Is that a jet that crashed? No. Is that a power line? No. It has nothing to do with realism, rendering, similitude. It's not. It's just a purely abstract mark. Now, admittedly, again, I'll zoom into the tree here, there is too much pencil on this painting. It's like to say, witness my distress. Okay? In other words, there ain't none. No distress, because at the end of every single phase, there's too much of whatever that last phase was. All right, now the next layer is drawing with fairly small brushes, a little bit more carefully than the pencil. And dark, of course. Drawing with dark, that means transparent. I shouldn't have to say that. If I say dark, you know it means transparent, and vice versa. If I say transparent, you know it means dark. And if you don't know that, it's because you are a real new viewer. Welcome, welcome, welcome. But stick around here for 20 minutes and you'll hear that again. You get dark with transparent, light with opaques. Not everybody in my generation knows that, but everybody who does know that is a better painter than they would be if they didn't know it. And in that regard, I paint like the old masters: Rembrandt, Rubens, Fragonard, Boucher, all the old masters. Rubens, transparent, dark underneath, and thick, bold, opaque on top. All right. I'm trying to decide now. I'm standing here looking, trying to decide where to start. For some reason, this is very unusual. I think because this is bothering me, not because I want to cover up my mistakes, not that kind of bothering me, but because the drawing is unresolved. I'm not embarrassed. It's not that kind of irritation. But I just moved these cars a few minutes ago, and I want to redraw them. Okay, so I've just mixed up a dark reddish brown. It's a combination of ultramarine, oxide red, and permanent rose. Again, please do not take notes. That is not a note-taking kind of thing. I'm just letting you know for curiosity's sake. I am taking liberties with the street. This is downtown Raleigh, by the way. I hadn't mentioned that. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. And this is our main street. We are one of those cities that has a very clearly defined and distinct main street. It's called Fayetteville Street. And down at that end is the auditorium where the symphony plays and all the opera and all that stuff, you know, the Broadway musicals that come to town and so forth. That's the Memorial Auditorium is down that way. Right behind me, about 150 feet behind where I was standing, and I'm on a raised area, by the way. The perspective is skewed by the fact that I'm standing my feet are about 5 feet above this street, and there's a cross street that goes this way. I don't know if you can. It's okay if you can't tell that right now. That's fine with me. But that's what's going on. And I am going to make some very definite modifications to the landscape, if you will. This used to be a pedestrian mall from 1976 until about 2002 or no 4 something, anyway 4 or 5. It was a pedestrian mall. It was a miserable failure. So the city paid millions and millions of dollars to have the street opened up to traffic again. And so there was a lot of downtown urban improvement that took place in the years 2004 to 2008, say. And in that same period was 9/11. It's funny, I bet very few people, maybe it's only because I'm an artist who paints downtown and have painted since that era, make any connection at all. So after 9/11, this happened all across America, and as I said, most people don't even notice it anymore. It's just become part of our visual, the wallpaper of our lives. There are a number of anti-bomb, they put planters, like what should be a place for cars to park, has these big pots. So they're decorative, right? But what they really are is anti-bomb security. Each pot probably weighs 2 tons, and there's rows of them. Bum, 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 bum. They're barricades, actually. And they had to re-engineer, they had to redraw the blueprints of this street after 9/11. Anywhere there's a public or a federal building, or a state building, not federal. This is the first 2 buildings here are state buildings, and the first one over here. So wherever there's a state building on the street, we have these big gray, and they're supposed to be pretty, and they're okay. You know, it's not exactly like a 19th century French Parisian street scene. Do you know what I mean? So how pretty are they? Well, you know. Anyway, sorry, I ramble. I'm taking them out. I don't always. In fact, more often than not, I include them in the scene. But for this particular painting, this week, I'm inclined to remove those big bulbous bomb barricades that look like planters. And they do have plants growing out of them, of course. All right. That was probably a whole lot more information than you really wanted, but there you go. You just never know where I'm going with these broadcasts. And then, let me think. Those are parked cars. So I'm parking cars. And one of the questions is, this is a commissioned piece. Is my client likely to complain about this change? First of all, unless they watch this video, which they're more than welcome to do. Hello, Carol, if you're watching, I hope you're watching. But unless they watch this video, the likelihood that they'll even notice is fairly small. They won't even notice that I've replaced the bomb pots with that's my new term, evidently. I've replaced the bomb pots with traffic. They probably won't notice. I'd give them about a 15% chance of noticing. But even if they did notice, would they complain and say, hey, wait a minute, I like those big gray pot things that we have down there. I'm gambling. It is a gamble. I'm gambling that they won't complain. Why? Because I'm making the scene more attractive than it really is. It's like and again, normally I do paint those in, but just for some reason on this particular painting, it's intuition. I'm just inclined to take it out. Here I am once again painting cars. Not my favorite thing to paint. And I used to allow that impulse, that sentiment to color my painting process a little bit too much. And I left my vehicular traffic quite abstract. And several people challenged me, not the least of which my youngest son, who likes cars a lot, he didn't like the kind of car shapes that I ended up with. So indeed, I mended my ways, and now I'm going to pay quite a bit more attention to the rendering of cars, which of course means I've had to go back and, do figure studies, quote unquote. I call it that, figure studies of cars. Once again, looking at the reference photo. Here's a tip if you want for painting or rendering any city street in the modern world. The sidewalk and the street is a veritable forest of vertical shapes. And this street is no exception. There are traffic lights, crosswalk lights, no parking signs or yes parking signs. There are street signs and identification signs and trees and like tourist signs, this way to the museum of whatever you call it, So it just creates truly, I'm not going to try to define all these vertical shapes. All I know is this: if I create just a forest of vertical shapes, it's going to feel like our street. Just one of those little tips that might help you render your city street. If you diminish, if you're unaware of that, you're likely to underestimate the proliferation of how much of that is in our city streets. So there, just for what it's worth, quick little tip. Again, I see it's a veritable forest of vertical lines, signs and signs and signs, way more than you would think. At least way more than I would think. I would guess. I would have to say, parking, no parking, 2-hour parking, bus stop, pedestrian crossing, just signs and signs and signs, and then trees and goodness knows what all. Oh, and street lights. I didn't mention street lights. These are street lights here. Now that, of course, it doesn't mean I need to include everyone. Not at all. I've just told you a minute ago that I'm completely removing the bomb buster pots. I don't find them particularly attractive for this painting. So you don't need to include everything, but if you want it to look, see, I don't think most people would notice that I took out those bomb buster pots because most people don't notice them. In fact, if they did, they would complain. Those aren't very pretty. We should get rid of those. Not really understanding. Oh, it was our friends. It was our friends around the world who decided to redesign our streets for us. I'll try not to get too political here. We of the great Satan. So because of our satanic ways, we had to go and make our streets, all the streets in America had to get more satanic by having bomb pots on them. It could be worse. You could live anywhere else. There. This, what I'm doing right now, reminds me of an expression that I've made periodically several times over the years. Another way to describe what I think is good painting. Now, again, and I'm ignoring all your wonderful chats. Hello, Susan. One way to describe good painting, and again, by that I mean not realistic painting. Realistic painting is fun, easy. It takes a certain kind of skill, it takes drawing skill, which can be developed or cheated around, either one. If you don't want to take the time to develop it, just develop a way of tracing, projecting, gridding, whatever. But one way to describe, in my opinion, good painting is, first of all, it's a process. Good painting is a process. And it's a process in which every single layer or phase of the painting process is very abstract. Every single layer or phase of the drawing process. Whoa, hang on just a second. Whoops, I made that line too high. There we go. Every single layer. Now, even that connotes a process of painting, as opposed to hyper-realistic painting. If you're a hyper-realist, you can start. Whoops, sorry about that. You can start in the upper corner of your painting and just, if you're right-handed, and just paint the sky, paint the leaves, paint the building, and indeed some people do that. The realist folks, but I'm. All right, are we back? I think we are. Sorry about that. In all the hustle and bustle of moving around and getting ready to broadcast, evidently my foot. Let me triple check on here. I'm paranoid. My power source to my camera came loose, so the camera lasted 20 minutes. Running on its internal battery power, and then said, sayonara. My camera speaks Japanese, evidently. Okay, while you were gone, I drew on this building a bunch up here, making corrections. Again, making corrections at so when I'm drawing, again, this is the 6th or 7th or 8th, I don't know which, time phase that I've drawn. And when I say draw, I mean typically like small brushes or pencils, right? As opposed to 3-inch brushes doing glazes. So this is the 6th, 7th, or 8th time that I've drawn this subject matter. And with each and every drawing, I'm not simply tracing over what I drew the last time. That would be redundant. A waste of time and so forth. Instead, I'm making draw early edits and judgments. I'm looking at my photograph. Every time you see me look over there to the right, that's me checking out my photo reference and making adjustments. So I moved the corner of this building almost over to the left, almost an inch. This edge of this wall of this building, I moved to the right about half an inch. That kind of thing happens, and this right here is probably the most definitive of all the drawing layers. What I mean is, like a few minutes ago I did drawing with pencil, right? And now I'm drawing with brushes. So there's several versions of drawing, but this layer, this phase right here, where I'm drawing dark details in oil. I did a similar thing, more than one, in the acrylic phase. Anyway, this is probably the one that I get most, as the kids would say, most anal about. This is the one that I'm most fussy about, and that explains a little bit why I'm making such drastic modifications to my drawing. You know, moving a line an inch or half an inch is, again, because I'm looking carefully. But that doesn't mean I can't or won't make more subtle changes or more changes as the painting evolves. I will indeed. If I need to, I'll make more. I was going to say, before I was so rudely interrupted by a dead battery, that one way to describe good painting, in my opinion, is that it's many phases, many stages, many layers, any of those words will do, of painting. Each phase or stage in and of itself is quite abstract. It would be fun sometime. I don't know how I could do that, but it would be fun to try to isolate. I'd have to paint on layers and layers and layers of transparent plastic, I guess, to try to emulate, and then pull each layer off and look at it. So each layer in itself is quite abstract, and I trust you see that by the nature of my movements. You know, but one of your responses could be to watching me paint. I think it would be, I'm not telling you how you have to respond, but I'm saying I think it would be very natural and appropriate for you to say, wow, he moves quickly, loosely, fluidly, and all those words would be very appropriate. I move with sprezzatura. That's one of my favorite obscure art terms. Sprezzatura, from, and it sounds, I mean, it's Italian, obviously, so I don't know why that's come to us. It's come to us through the Renaissance, through the Renaissance, I think, from like the Florence, that gateway, that cultural gateway. And sprezzatura was originally a term coined to describe the behavior of the court in the presence of the king, the courtiers, how they were expected to behave. And it's quite simple. They were, if you understand, they were expected to behave in a manner that would not cause undue stress to the monarch. The poor fella or woman has a lot on his plate, you know. He has to go jousting this afternoon, he has to go fox hunting tomorrow, and he has to lay with one of his 73 wives every night. He's got a lot on his plate. I'm being sarcastic and mildly crude, aren't I? Anyway, he's got a lot on his plate, so you want to be nice to your monarch, or he will chop off your head. Now we're getting down to the business. So sprezzatura was a word that as I understand it, I wasn't there. I looked all this up. You know, it was a word that described the manner, and it basically means light and airy. So the chef is downstairs cooking for his life, because if he burns the toast, he could lose his head. I'm exaggerating only slightly, as you know. And so he's downstairs and he's creating all kinds of outrageous dishes. You know, dishes containing live birds. 4 and 20 to be exact. And when he presents his dish to the king, and the king praises him, the chef is expected, at the risk of, once again, of losing his head, he's expected to respond with, "It was nothing. Oh, it was nothing, my liege." All right, that's sprezzatura. All right, so that's the source of it. And ironically, I don't know who brought it over into the art world, but somebody. I didn't make it up. I just get a kick out of it. I think it's very, very fascinating. One of the ways to describe, I think, decent painting is it should look as though it was done in that manner. I want this tree right here to look like a dead ringer of a bare tree, whatever kind of tree that is. I'm looking at a photograph over there. Okay, I want it to look like this tree right here. You with me? Got it? And yet I'm going to paint it with sprezzatura. I'm going to paint it with what looks like it just... I've defined, in years past, I've said that a perfect painting for me would be one that it looks as though a paint factory exploded. Oil paint factory exploded. But there was a canvas leaning up against the wall, and against that canvas appeared, the Mona Lisa, or, the perfect rendering of Mona Lisa, except that it's accomplished with sprezzatura, with it looks like it. Oh, there's nothing, my liege. Oh no, it's nothing. Oh, it just falls off my brush. Are you kidding? I'm embarrassed. I just walked through the room and spit on my canvas, and behold, this is what appeared. King, I promise. All right, I'm being silly, as you can tell. You get what you pay for. But indeed, and so this is just one really crazy way to describe, crazy way to describe good painting process. And again, in contradistinction to the first half of life painting, which is, as you know, first half of life, you're trying to paint stuff that looks like stuff. Second half of life, you're painting sprezzatura-ishly. When words fail, make up your own. That's my motto, as you probably well know. When words fail, to heck, how come does somebody make up sprezzatura-ishly? That should be, look for it in next year's Oxford Dictionary. So again, I'm just describing in a variety of ridiculous ways what good painting is. And I know that I say this kind of stuff probably way too often. Indeed, I have the passion of a convert in this regard. Do you know what I mean by that? Like if somebody is raised in a certain worldview and then they go through a giant life change and they switch to another. We all know people have done this. Usually, the religious conversion is the most common example of this. And they switch to a new worldview, and then they're zealously, passionately evangelistic about their new worldview, right? And that's sort of the way I am with painting, and I probably why I bring up the subject so often, that because I certainly paid my dues. I did my time as a tight realistic artist, and could easily have missed the memo. I could have missed the boat, and that would have been okay. I mean, there are many artists who finish their entire career, go to their grave entirely in the first half of all the hyper realists. And I don't criticize them. I don't want to be one, and I'm trying to influence all of my listeners not to be one also. You understand? But I'm not critical of the people who do that. In fact, the fact is, and here's kind of a counterbalance to that. And again, I still have issues inside my soul because I majored in art in a typical university, Western University art department in any time in the last 100 years, where we were told, either with words or more often not with words, we were told that realism was out. I mean, out. It was, if you were square, to use that old-fashioned, I'm thinking like the bear in Jungle Book, Disney. Every square with a horn makes you wish you weren't born. All right, so in the art department, every square, and believe me, I still, even though I paint abstract realism, the real cool cats in the art world are scorn. Look with this complete discorn. Complete discorn. When a word doesn't work, when a word doesn't exist, make it up. Discorn. There's a new word. That was accidental. I've told this story before, but in fact, I just read in my college alumni magazine that my primary art professor passed away just this past year, so that it was kind of more fun to pick on him when he was alive, but okay, now he's dead, so gone to his reward, as the case may be. Gone to the great big painting studio in the sky. And he was a good guy. Don't let me I don't want to. He was a good guy. He was, in my book, unfortunately, not extremely historically or philosophically sophisticated. So he more or less just swallowed the crap that was given to him by his professors at wherever, in Holland, in the university system of the Netherlands, somewhere, because he was Dutch, somewhere in the middle of the 20th century. Okay, so he swallowed it all, hook, line, and sinker, and then pretty much came to the college where I was and regurgitated that to us. One day I was completely lost in college. I mean, I didn't know what to do. Again, because you were cool if you did abstract, and you were completely benightedly out of touch if you did realism. And the more realistic your realism was, the more square you were, the more out of touch you were. And I think many of you know what I'm talking about. You had the same experience anyway. But I didn't know what to do, because, well, for one thing, I was the best realistic drawer in the class. No great shock there, maybe. I was that one kid. I was that one student. And so I spelled trouble from the day that I showed up, because they could tell, because they knew my type. They had a type. It's like, oh, he's one of those. He thinks it's about doing realism. Oh. And they tried to beat that crap out of me real hard. I tried real hard. And as you can see, almost succeeded. Actually sent me in a spiral that took me at least 12, 15 years to recover from. But one day in the hallway, I was doing a three-dimensional fabric sculpture. Okay, canvas, natural canvas, and big red thread, just for fun. And I was sewing something, and my main professor, he wasn't the head of the department, but he was like the psychological head of the department, if you know what I mean. Everybody knew he was the big dog. He was the man with whom you had to deal. And he came down the hall, and he thought that my sculpture was abstract. So he put a big smile on his face. It's like, oh, wow, this is nice, this is nice. As he came, we finally got this drawer kid to get away from drawing and to do some abstract. And then when he drew closer, he realized that this big thing was actually a beanbag. It was full stuffed with, polystyrene beads. he realized that it was in the shape of a hand. And the smile disappeared in a heartbeat and was replaced with a sneer. Oh boy. In a couple weeks, I'm going to paint for a fundraiser for an arts organization here in Raleigh, which will remain unnamed. But I'm going to do a good, as I have every year for the last nearly 20 years. I do a painting for them for their. But there will be hundreds of paintings at this show. They will range from ugly abstract to abstracted realism will be the majority, but there will not be a lot of pleasant paintings there, and my painting will stand out like a sore thumb at this place. And again, I just want you to know this is where the cool cats artistically hang out in our town, and they all do abstract. Well, anyway, I started this story because I wanted to get to a point that. Because you hear me often kind of railing against hyper-realism or much realism or extreme or whatever you want to call it, realistic painting, when I think abstract realism is the way to go. Of course, I would, right, since that's what I do. But here's the dirty little secret that my professors did not want to acknowledge, and now 50 years later, there's no question in my mind that they were wrong. And somebody mentioned the books over here. Let me find the one. Hang on just a second. I'm talking about my bookshelf. Let me find you the one. There's a whole bunch of here. There it is, right there. Art and Culture, Clement Greenberg. Somebody said I should tell you which are my no. This is in a category similar. I'm reading Karl Marx's Das Kapital, and I would put the two of them sort of in a similar category. But if you want to know, Clement Greenberg, a snob, a grumpy cultural Marxist who hated realistic art. And it's really funny. In his lifetime, abstract was like radical, So he spent much of his life beating the drum for abstract painting, because at the time, for centuries, artists had done realism. And but before he died, the what's the word? The hammer fell in opposite direction. Before he died, abstract painting became really popular. And people, I don't mean among collectors, I mean among orderly ma and pa, Midwestern people decorating their living room would put abstract paintings, and it really messed him up, in my opinion, because he'd been arguing grumpily for decades against realism and against the proletariat, against the bourgeois knuckleheads, basket of deplorables, who liked, Robert, I'm forgetting his name, Robert Moore. Anyway, realism, traditional party pictures. Well, then, before he died, that pendulum swung, and ordinary people said, "Hey, you know what? We really do like this." And I'm the same way. I mean, I do abstract paintings, right? I don't know if you know that or not. Go to dannelsonart.com, click on paintings. I haven't looked lately, over 200 abstract paintings on my website. And I love abstract painting. It's not the same as this, of course. It doesn't rise to this level of quality, but it's interesting and it's fun. It's perfectly good. Anyway, here's what the professors got wrong. Human beings, unless they have drunk the Kool-Aid served by the art establishment, by the university, human beings, unless they are indoctrinated, all human beings like to see things rendered or drawn accurately by their fellow human beings. I am so convinced that is true. You will never convince me otherwise. Generally speaking, human beings get a kick out of seeing stuff, and I still do too. So When I'm railing, if you will, against the hyper-realists, you have to understand that that railing is tempered a good deal by this understanding. On the other hand, when I look at a painting by my good friend, and that's very sincere, David Stickle, I have the same response that everybody else does. I go, dang, that's amazing. Okay? And I don't apologize for that because I acknowledge that it's true. Even though I don't want to paint like him, I admire and respect it greatly, and so on. So anyway, that was a very long rant, wasn't it? Where we ended up nowhere in particular. But it gave me time to finish my drawing in dark abstract. And then, as you saw there at the end, draw and then scratch. Okay, so this has become a important element in my painting. That is, I mess up much of my painting at every stage of the process. So in this case, I did all the drawing first and then picked up the brushes and scratched it. Someday we'll talk more about why I do that, but I don't have the energy right now. And I'm going to quit right here. Just for what it's worth, this is a nice point if you're painting my technique, my layers. This is a nice place to stop. Not necessary, and of course when I'm at a wedding, I don't have time to stop. I just plow right through. But if you are going to stop, this is a nice place because this will all be dry tomorrow. And that means I can come in and start. The next layer, by the way, is my first final edit layer. Final edit used to be the final layer. Now there's about 6 layers after that. But this will be my first. And final edit will be for the first time in this entire painting process that I'm applying opaque color. And the final edit is just like it sounds. It's used to cover up stuff. So at this point, at the next point, I will indeed cover things up. But if this is all dry, that makes that job a lot easier. If it's wet, then of course I'm painting wet in wet, and this dark stuff will pick up. You just have to deal with it. You just have to make it work. But don't pretend that you're not picking it up. If you go in here with wet paint, don't pretend, I don't see that it's picking up the dark stuff underneath. No, you do see it. It is indeed picking up the dark paint. So yeah, but it's just a little bit easier. Oh, you know what? Hang on a second. I just saw something. I want to add some reflection of these figures that are standing here. So I'm going to do the cliche, perhaps, wet street. I am. That's just the way it goes. Till people stop liking wet streets, I'm going to paint wet streets. And most of that will be done in light, but I just realized, I should do a little bit of that in the dark stuff right now. All right. So I'm going to stop painting probably for the day. I have been busy, as you might see. If you go to my YouTube community page, I've posted several finished paintings on YouTube community in the last couple of days. And I think that I'm happy with the painting so far. Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching. Should I read your all you kind people who left a chat? Oh, for some reason, nobody's chatted in a while. All right. Are we broadcasting? We are broadcasting, right? Yeah, 12 of you watching. Okay, nobody's chatting. Unless sometimes my chat freezes. All right. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon, I hope. Bye-bye.